thinking whether it will be worth it to me blow. It's so awesome. So now how I'm going to do this stuff. I should do it differently, I guess. I should actually, I like the idea of the fixed colors. Fixed color scheme. It will create a constraint that's actually really good constraint. But then I don't know how I will use that. So for now I can actually create a list of fixed 32, let's say 32 colors. It's just gonna be a table of colors that you can actually define, redefine, and reference. And 32 is actually a lot. But then I can actually see whether I need more, and for those extra colors I can actually make a dynamic memory that will just be empty for most of the time. But once I need something like that, I will just go for that. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So we should have some kind of yeah, solid color brushes. Yes. I'll go for the application, and we have app options, and for the app options we can actually, well, should we? I'll just go ahead and do color 32, and it'll be actually a structure. No, it'll be just 32, just a fixed thing for 32 colors, where you can specify whatever colors you want. Because we have to cache 32-bit long numbers, and we have to create 32 bits long numbers, because direct 2D. Should I do it actually? I just have this feeling of actually this one. Can I just draw it like I will, when I will go and draw a rectangle, then I will just, yeah, I can do that. I mean, that's okay. It's completely okay. I don't need to do this stuff. I only need it temporary until I get rid of the, until I create my own text renderer. So this is stupid. This is just stupidity. I won't do that. I just refuse to do that. Fucking solid color brushes. And I'll need to think. The script, maybe the script wasn't working. I think I'm actually thinking about the tools you use and actually thinking about how to make your life easier, you know. But I will have to finish my marathon and then I will take a look at your streams and maybe maybe I will find a way how to make it better, because most of the stuff there is, it's about, I guess it's about synchronizing the the times. Yeah, tell us, how does that work? I'm actually interested as well. Hale. So, static memory, we will have some brushes there. I will just don't even bother use my precious static memory. I will just go with the fucking array. And I will just need 8 colors for that. And I will go ahead and namespace ms schnit. Create schnit. So I will do what I will do. I will take a text processor. No, I will just pass it a brush pointer, and then I'm returning nothing, and I will make color, and I need a render target. It's just ID 2D1 render target. RT well, yeah, Microsoft is so stupid with this API that it just... So I will need just a render target, I guess. Remove this on top. So I will create some colors. For that I will need my color scheme. And my color scheme is here. Well, Photoshop, come on guy. Come on, little guy, you can do this. You can do this. You only cost me like like 200 bucks. You can do it. I believe you can actually do it. I believe you can actually do all this stuff. RT, and then we will go for we will need this one, and we will also need the text processor TP. So it's p.d 0. Go. We'll go for 1. We will just do the pointer to that. brushes too. Well, I guess this one is a little bit darker, so I will just go ahead and make it a bit lighter. Yeah. Actually used grayscale for that. Where are we? It's not this one, it's where is it? Yeah, it's black white. Okay. Let me go for. Okay. This color is actually, this one is darker. So I will go ahead. Well, I maybe can actually. What color I have on the background here? It's this one. Pixel. Orca. HTML. Okay. Yes. Don't need this one anymore. Yeah. I like this color scheme. Yeah, this green is actually. I can go ahead and just develop a bit. But then the green is actually it feels okay because human eye is much more sensitive to green color. So I guess I see it better than the other colors here. I think that these two actually need a bit of tuning, because they are too saturated. This one as well. This one will need some special treatment. Maybe I will even go for a different, bit of a different hue. Yeah. This one needs some tuning as well. Yeah. Something like this. Okay, I can live with this. So this is the first OX. This one is the second. Are we actually using I? All layers? Yeah. So this way I will actually have the layer applied. It's blue. This is kind of a yellow. Okay, we can call it light yellow for now. This one is green. Green. I only need 3 of them actually. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now. Really, really. Oh, good damn you. Good. So, now. Everybody pray. Great, it doesn't work at all. So... don't have any idea what this should work. Oh god. So maybe it's the combination of the two. Is it? No, it's not. Yeah, and maybe that's because it's... Yep. Victory! Victory! Yeah. So that shit is done. Awesome. Awesome. Going for smoke. Yeah. Thank you, Yumi Blow. It's high five for you, I guess. So this stuff works. Of course, it's not reparsing it again. That's okay. It's okay, but what I'm more... well, I will find it later, I guess. So at this point we have some ways to color our stuff. It's actually done in place. It had coded, but I don't care about that too much, because that'll require a lot of work to be done before I can do this. Definitely, I won't definitely be able to actually manage it till the end of the marathon, but it'll give an impression of actual editor, which is what I really need to actually have to be able to say hello to the new software. Oh god, I messed it up. I messed it up. Good. So, at this point, and at this point, I can just go ahead and plug in the thingy. The thingy that is doing the thingy. But first, I think I will have to do one other thingy. No, do I? No, I don't. I will do that later. Hopefully, I won't forget. Hopefully, yeah, because I just want to feel how see how it feels. I want to know. I just want to know how it feels when you actually edit text with the parser. How much it will slow down. So we are setting the head right here. Well, we will go for immediate parse. So document parse. Document parse. Immediate. will set the parser, and we will need to document parse set head document. Yeah, we want to document as well. So we have document and we go from 0. So that will be set. It means that it will also start the parsing. So we will set the parser status to working, and in that moment we can actually do our job. And what we should also do is to should initialize. So I will just do it like this. I will just move this one to here. No, I want, this is just a declaration of the parser. It doesn't have to do anything with the other stuff. So this one will have to go here. It's parser storage, and we will parser document parser storage is we'll just deallocate it. We will set the new parser, and we will also initialize the parser. So this one will go away. So we will initialize the parser right there. Good. Oh, proposal drifting. Now that's interesting. Now that's interesting. And a bit of sad. So we will clear that stuff. I see that D7 is not here because Miblo is able to actually moderate. So now the head is 0. I actually don't know how this part actually fits inside. It's inside what we want to do. And this is the stack magic actually. Pause. Damn. Okay, this one.
They told me I was too young. They told me I needed more training. I told them to drop dead.
Let's stack.
How ironic. I don't know how I survived that fall. Something strange must have happened. My pulse is beating like a drum, but my blood is running cold. I'm not sure what's going on, but I came here with a question. And I'm gonna find the answer if it kills me.
Milo. Amazing. Terrible. Blocks, tokens, and go for the stack as well. Okay, so smoke time.
Line. Float for A equals 18.
4, 4, 4, 4.
4, 4, 4. Oh. All right, I sincerely hope that's the last one, and I apologize for that. I'm sorry, you said 4, 4, 4, 4.
That's right.
That is correct. Nicely done. 100 points separates the team. John, in control of the board.
Bride of story problems?
Oh, Jesus.
Bride of Story Problems for 100 points. And of course, Bride of Story Problems is just our Story Problems category, which is the only category that we have had in every single Programmer's Challenge. Now, normally, it doesn't really matter who's playing the Programmer's Challenge, because if Mike Abrash is on a team, he gets them all right.
Yeah.
But in this case, he is not playing, so we don't actually know who's going to answer them.
John still cleans up on this category.
The first...
The fact that this and Serialize are in the same group is just going
Bad
to
news.
it's going to be devastating.
You think you know what Serialize is, do you?
I think I do.
All right. First question in this category. In their first 3 years of existence, Infinium Labs burned through $62.7 million worth of venture capital. Given that they spent $12.8 million on consultants, $11.9 million on salaries, $5.9 million on administrative, and $3.5 million on development, how much was left to blow on strippers and cocaine? Is it A? Oh, sorry, already rung in.
29.4 million.
29 point. Ooh.
Oh! How much time do we have?
You got a little time. I'll give you a little bit to scratch there.
I am like so far off. What did I miss?
Josh,
5.9. I missed the 5.9.
You missed the 5.9?
All right.
That was for administrative expenses. Because, they had while they were developing, they didn't want to take effort away from those developers. They had to have,
I think
some administrative.
Wait, did we buzz in?
No, they lost, so...
What did they guess?
They guessed
Oh, something that was not
29.4 million.
Oh.
Any idea?
They're probably off by a little bit. What do you got?
Or should we just...
I stopped adding because I figured you guys handed it.
Guess.
They must be probably were close.
It's a
little
point.
bit.
A, B, or C, or D.
It's a B or C.
Yeah, Butch is probably pretty good at this sort of thing,
Well,
so I'm
let's
thinking
see
it's C.
C.
No, I think it's actually it's
Wait.
B?
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, I've got it. Hold on a second.
All right. We're just going to move on.
No. We'll go C. We'll go C.
Yeah,
We'll go
go
C. We'll go C.
C? C is incorrect.
It was B.
It is, in fact, B.
You had it written down.
I had it. Yeah.
You had it. You doubted your... It's right
About
there.
yourself.
18.6. And I was
That was addition, and addition can sometimes be tricky, so I understand
Wait, that was addition? Oh, shit.
there are some problems. Bride of
Let's do like
Story
subtraction.
Problems, what are we doing?
Let's stick with it.
Sticking with it for 200? Bride of Story Problems for 200. The number of Second Life subscribers is given by the quantity 3x plus 9 over the quantity x squared minus 13, where x is the number of press releases issued by Linden Labs. As the number of press releases goes to infinity, which it surely will, 18.
0.
0 is correct.
Yes.
The A team in control of the board.
Story problems.
Story Problems for 300. Aunt Betsy's wrist strap breaks, sending her Wii controller flying at the television at 5 feet per second from 12 feet away. Rabbi Abraham forgot to fasten his wrist strap despite the strongly worded warning, and sends his controller flying at 7 feet per second from 19 feet away.
Betsy's wrist strap hits first.
Betsy's? Aunt Betsy is correct. Nicely done. John knows it, but the Wii probably doesn't know it.
Let's stay there.
Staying with story problems for 400. When SCEA President and CEO Jack Tretton offered to pay $1,200 for every PS3 sitting on retailers' shelves, there was an average of 6 PS3s on such shelves at each of Best Buy's 742 locations in North America. If Best Buy sent these PS3s to Tretton instead of selling them for their list price of $600, how much more revenue would they make? Is it A, 44,500, B, 5,342,400, C, 2,671,200, or D, are you sure it's not $1,200 to begin with? Butcher.
C.
C is correct. Wow. The A team pulling ahead. Story problems for 5?
Yep.
Story problems for 500. You are a high-level EA executive. You have 327,600 man-hours of game development to complete in the 12 weeks before Christmas. If you have 300 employees working 40 hours a week, how many hours of unpaid overtime per week should you force each employee to do before laying them off in January? Clearly a crowd favorite.
I can't.
Okay, is it A, 4 hours a week extra, B, 51 hours a week extra, C, 480 hours a week extra, or is it EA spouse spoiling all of your plans?
Who can do math when you have to read the question?
Sorry.
It's funny. The questions are funny. I can't concentrate.
Chris is blinded by the humor.
Like, I have the number 327,600 written on my piece of paper and nothing else.
It's a good start. That is one of the numbers from the question. Turning out to be a stumper. This is why it's a 500-point question.
We're going to go with C. It's a big number.
C, it's a big number. I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Even EA probably wouldn't make you work 480 hours a week extra. A team. Only two choices.
I got a number that's totally different for anything there.
50-50 chance here.
It's B.
It's B? It is, in fact, B. 51 hours a week. The A team in a command here.
Bad
Two categories to go. In control of the board.
Drop the log.
Drop the... Yes, Eric.
Is there something you need to tell us?
If you need to take a bathroom break, the round break was really the time to do that.
I've got a really immature joke to tell.
Okay.
What did Data find in the toilet?
I don't know.
Captain's log.
Star Trek humor.
I think
Do we
we should
dock
dock
points
the
for
points.
Star Trek humor? I think probably. Is that like 100 points off or something? All right. I'm sorry, guys. It's just,
Can anyone think of 14 more Star Trek jokes so we can bring it back to a tie?
Drop the log for 100 points. This is the first time in this category. And these are questions about the worst case running times of algorithms. So sorted array find is its worst case running time ON, ON squared, N log N, or log N. Sorted array find. A team.
D.
D is correct. Chris in control of the board.
Continue.
Sorry?
Continue with that one.
Continue. Drop the log for 200. Q sort. Is it ON? Team B. All right.
I think go for it. Totally generic Q sort is n squared. Worst
N
case.
squared?
Yeah.
N squared is correct. Nicely done, Chris. Yes, these are all worst case.
Okay.
They're always worst case.
I thought a pivoting
You're in control of the board.
strategy would fix that, but I don't remember.
In control of the board?
Serialized or serialized?
There are only two
Do you know what these
categories.
are? Okay, let's try it.
Pick
100.
one, actually.
Oh, man.
And we're going to do them both.
Yeah,
So it shouldn't be too hard.
It doesn't really matter the name.
Serialize with 100.
Serialized for 100. Serialized is a category which requires a little explanation. It is, of course, the spiritual successor to our candy bar binary category, which Chris, I think, was correctly predicting over here. And basically what I would like you to do is think of cereals as being encoded by 3 bits. The high bit is whether or not the cereal is frosted. The middle bit is whether or not it tastes fruity. And the low bit is whether or not its shape has a genus greater than 0. I'm going to give you an expression involving one or more cereals, and I want you to tell me the cereal from the list of matches that matches that expression. And it's 3 bits per cereal, so I guess it's technically like 1 bit less than a nibble of cereal.
Can you, Jeff, could you
Sorry.
dock him points?
I know. I'm immune. First question in that category is Trix or Cheerios. Is that Corn Flakes, Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes, or Frosted Cheerios?
Fruit Loops.
Team B. Fruit Loops is correct. Nicely done, Chris. 1,200 points away. Still anybody's game. Team B in control of the board.
Up to you.
I fear this category, but okay. John's going to warm up here soon, and we're fucked. Okay.
I think that means serialized.
Yeah.
Serialized for 200. Fruit Loops and Banana Frosted Flakes. Is it Cheerios, Trix, Fruit Loops, or Banana Frosted Flakes? And believe me, that really does exist as a cereal.
Tricks.
Trix. Chris.
Oh, Chris.
Burning through the category he was afraid of. Your fear is being put to good
My
use.
fear
here,
makes me
Chris.
stronger.
Apparently.
I want to challenge that.
Still in control of the board.
Let's do more of it.
Sure.
Serialized for 300. Frosted Flakes XOR Frosted Cheerios. Is it Fruit Loops, Banana Frosted Flakes, Cheerios, or Corn Flakes?
Cornflakes.
Yes.
Brian with Corn Flakes.
Oh.
Sorry, it is not Corn Flakes.
Oh, it's genius.
Oh. We're going to say C, Cheerios. Sorry.
Cheerios is correct.
Sorry.
Ooh, this is a close game. All right. In control of the board, John.
More serialized.
More serialized. Serialized for 400 points. Not Corn Flakes. Shift left 2. Is it Frosted Flakes, Trix, Frosted Cheerios, or Cheerios?
Frosted Flakes. Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes is correct.
Sweet.
Oh,
Nice.
need to make up 900 points. In control of the board.
Let's keep it going.
Okay.
Serialized for 500. Not Frosted Flakes, right shift Cheerios, the quantity, or Trix. Is it Banana Frosted Flakes, Frosted Cheerios, Fruit Loops, or Corn Flakes?
I think it's Fruit Loops.
John,
It's Fruit Loops.
is it Fruit Loops? It is Fruit Loops. I should also mention at this point, some of you, in fact possibly Sean, might be wondering if that set is actually closed for the cereals that you can buy in the store. And the answer is that if the holes in Yummy Mummy actually go all the way through, which I don't know if they do, then yes. But if not, then no. So if anyone has some of that cereal at home, be sure to check and let me know. Drop the log for 300, only remaining category. The median of an unsorted array is that ON, ON log n, ON squared, or Anyone? It's you guys.
O-N, I think.
ON. That is correct. Ooh.
Can we come back?
Close.
Do we have enough? 1,100? No.
Drop the log.
Yeah, we can't. Those two numbers don't add up to the other difference.
Are there any bonus points available?
There might be if you answer really spiritedly on these. We'll see. The judge can give out points at any time. You're in control of the board?
I think we're going to go for drop the log for
Drop
400.
the log for 400. Oh, right. Sorry, didn't know I asked. Dijkstra's algorithm. Is it vertices plus edges? Edges, log edges plus vertices? Log edges plus vertices? Or vertices, log vertices plus edges?
Can I just say that I do game design now mostly?
John is trying to opt out of the category. Team B.
I think it's A.
A is incorrect. Team B. Or sorry, the A team. Formerly known as Team B.
I totally don't even remember what Dijkstra's algorithm is now. So
Oh.
It's a shitty version of A-star.
Oh.
It's B.
B? I'm sorry, B is incorrect. You're close, though. It's actually D.
Can we get a second chance? Damn. We need those points.
Drop the log for 500. Final question. Danzig's simplex algorithm. Chris.
It's exponential in Morse code.
But what is the O?
I mean, it's like 2 to the n or whatever.
2 to the n.
I mean,
That's what I'm looking for. 2 to the n is correct. Nicely done. So they almost pulled it out at the last minute, but not quite. That is a close programmer's challenge, my friends. 600 points separate the two, but the victor is the A team, the artist formerly known as Team B. Congratulations. Very impressive. So I'd just like to take a moment, obviously, to thank all the contestants for playing, for Jeff for coming up with the questions and judging, John Miles, who created the buzzer system, which we have used 5 years in a row.
Which they had to ship this year because they were afraid the Transportation Safety Administration would arrest them all if they carried it on.
It does look a little bit like a bomb when you all put it together. And thank you all for coming.
Woo!
Casey, we are telling
And
you.
thank you, Casey.
Hey, could be on. Well, it's going slower and slower, so I might just wrap it up and we'll go to get some sleep and just finish it tomorrow. So well, yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff and Casey Show.
Hello, and welcome to the Jeff and Casey Show.
This is another topic in which I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. Casey's
Well,
been doing the gathering of information.
Yeah, I feel like between the two of us, I am the one who tends to be a little more rigorous.
No!
In his own head.
Oh, okay.
Right? We're both usually not correct.
Well, I think the problem is
we get
this.
confused.
Yeah,
It's true.
actually
I
this
had
one
actually-
with
I know
Casey
something
was
like
the best one.
podcast and
Right.
Send it to you,
I guess.
and that's the last time I think about it. I should
Because
probably
Casey is
search
just-
the podcast
Right.
before we begin.
I'm not sure if
Probably-
there are
You're not even
others
organized
I'm not a
to do
professor.
that.
Yeah, that's-
others actually
this was a topic that I thought was totally worth talking about.
actually
Even just
available
from a practical standpoint.
on
Like,
YouTube.
this is something that someone needs to actually put out there.
Okay.
And I feel like we could do a good job of laying the groundwork for it.
I see.
For a compendium of this sort, or of what actually needs to happen by hashing it out in the podcast once, just to see where we land.
Yes,
Okay.
HMH Casey, yeah.
This is motivated by the fact that recently I, as I'm sure you've seen, the Ouya, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the
That's-
I'm going to do-
OUYA console that
That's
was on
Really?
Kickstarter.
the Android-based.
It's a little
And
cube
when I say
that
really,
you
I mean
can
really.
play it's Tegra 3.
Stupid
it's a Tegra
stuff,
3
yeah.
inside a cube with a controller. That is what it is,
Okay.
right? And it's $99. You can go buy them now. They're out. They're fulfilling orders now or whatever.
Right.
So
Wait, you can buy them? I didn't know that. They're
yes,
done?
they are actively shipping to the pre-order people right now.
Okay.
So you can order and it'll be, I don't know if it's a month or they're not quite at the time when they've got surplus.
Right.
Because they're just started filling the orders of all the people who are on Kickstarter who ordered them.
How much
But
are they?
$99.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not an Ouya spokesperson. I don't know. I think it's $99 for a console.
feel like
it doesn't matter.
We should,
It's irrelevant.
assuming what we're going to talk about is
Horribly slow. Oh yeah.
It'll be clear.
And why is it? I mean, it's I never done
No, that's
Visual
not-
Basic
I am
before.
not here to bash the Ouya
I'm not
at
sure
all.
how it
So I
works
looked at
internally.
that, and
So
one of the things that obviously, if anyone who follows the podcast know, especially with
hey,
our first video podcast,
Max,
I was
it's that's great. That's so
console
great.
and PC people, it's a disaster. Like, we are letting our future be determined by people who don't have our best interest in mind, who are interested in doing nothing but extracting money from us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? I said a lot of very negative things, all of which I totally stand behind, as a part of like Windows and all these sort of things that are happening. So the Ouya is a little bit interesting because they were at least sort of purporting to be like an open platform, right? And so like one of the things that
There's still a store though.
So yeah, and I don't necessarily want to go into that part of it quite yet, because I think that remains to be seen what actually happens when that turns out. But one of the things they said was like they're not trying to prohibit people from, say, just wiping the BIOS, like not the BIOS, but wiping the installed system and just like taking over the box. It's like, hey, so the things that you might do with like a PlayStation where it's like, oh, I just put Linux on this or something, that Sony then like cracked down on and all those sorts of things. Like, they're actually saying no. It's like, if you just want to use this as a computing device that you just think you can. Right. And to me, that's like a positive step. Again, I don't necessarily think, based on some of the stuff I've heard from Ouya, that it's like this is the be-all and end-all, great company, whatever. But that was a positive, right?
Okay.
So I'm interested to see what they do with this. So I wanted to see what's going on. I download their SDK. And in the SDK, I find that it's basically all Java. It's just Java, right? It's an
Okay.
SDK, which makes sense because it's an Android device, and with absent the NDK, which is the the way that you can program
Right.
Java natively for certain Android platforms. Absent the NDK, that is what an Android device is. It is a Java device. The OS interfaces with you in Java. Even
Right.
if you did write native code, you have to have like a layer
Right.
there and that sort of stuff, right? So this bothers me because I feel like there is an overwhelming trend in all of the
Yeah,
spaces
okay, okay.
besides the hardest
That
core
makes
game
sense.
enclaves, like Xbox, PlayStation, like that kind of level. There is an overwhelming trend towards people not appreciating the need for native code and people overestimating the value of intermediate layers.
Right.
And so what I wanted to do was kind of have a podcast where we explain to people who may not know why these are true,
Right.
or who may think they know and disagree and have not heard good arguments to the contrary
Right.
about why these things are bad. And we've seen it a couple times now. The first Windows Phone, when they shipped that, and I don't know if they've fixed that by now. They were claiming they were going to fix
Windows
it.
8
but
phones, I think
You can do native. Okay, so the original like
I
Windows.
have a funny story about that. But
Okay.
Continue.
So like Windows Phone 7
Right.
and like that sort of stuff shipped out of the gate, no ability to do native. Android phone shipped out of the gate native, no ability to do native. Came along with the NDK, it's only a partial solution.
Right.
It's like it's still Java on the other end,
Yeah.
but it's about
It's a nightmare, but
right,
yes.
it's a bit of a nightmare. And so like now we've got the Ouya shipping, which is ostensibly a game console. Which if you normally think of game consoles, you think performance is important because latency and like the frame rate and these sorts of things are very important to the experience of playing a huge section of the types of games that there are out there currently. You'd think that would really care about things like performance. Nope, it's what they ship to developers was Java only, basically. I post on Twitter, hey, where's the native code stuff? I've posted it multiple times now. No answer from them or anyone else, right? And so I feel like this trend is disturbing, and I'd like to just kind of talk about why it's important that we stop thinking this way.
Right. I think there's a whole bunch there to unpack too.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of incorrect engineering assumptions all the way up and down that
I
stack.
believe so as well.
So we can start anywhere, but I'd prefer to start with the fact.
No, it's up.
Of people always
What does
saying,
that mean?
if you JIT code, it's going to be just as fast as native.
Okay.
And someday the JITs are going to be that good.
Which, by the way, is the same argument you almost always hear from garbage collection people that are like, either it's already good enough.
Right.
Look at this example where we instrumented someone's often Java code, which makes it even more hilarious. Where we instrumented something to determine how fast it would or wouldn't be, and then or they say, well, it's not there yet, but it will get there. Like eventually, it will get
the
there.
one I get mostly with garbage collection proponents are, if it's not fast enough, it's because you're doing it wrong.
Really?
And then they say, here,
Okay, I don't hear that one.
Yeah,
very
I hear that
often.
one all the time.
Wow,
And they're
okay.
like, the way you do this,
Yeah.
and they have a whole series of like, you pre-allocate the arrays, you do this. So the idea is, you architect your system as much as possible so you don't hit the garbage collector. And I'm like, that means there's no
You
point.
did the
Not
memory
only,
management. Yeah.
not only
Yeah.
are you manually effectively doing the memory management, just like you did before,
Right.
but you also have this cliff when you fuck up.
Right.
So it's the worst of both worlds.
Yes.
And again, 99% of the time, these people are programming in a way that makes that unnecessary. Like there are some things like, hey, enclosure-heavy languages, things like that, where you're doing lots of small allocations and currying values and all that around. Like, hey, there's some places where garbage collection allows you to think about code in a slightly different way that might have an advantage. 99% of the time, you're in Objective-C or Java or whatever, which is not that way. Very rarely do you get the win of doing that. You just get the loss and you get the stuff. And none of these people, all of these people are ending up thinking about these things in terms of them as a user of the garbage collection. Right. And so I have a hard time with that since, rad, we have a garbage collected thing when we had to do Iggy, the Flash-based system, which uses ActionScript, which is basically a slightly weird subset, superset of JavaScript.
Right. It's an ECMA derivative,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
And-
ActionScripts 3 is. 2 was not, right? 2 is like a separate thing, and 3 is like
the full
they
I
switched
think-
to JavaScript,
yeah.
I believe. But yes, yeah,
So anyway, like we have experience with this.
right. Because that language is spec'd to have a garbage collector, so
we
if you
have
are implementing it, you have to have a garbage
and if you can think about a large language or a browser or something like that, where you're writing one of these big sprawling garbage collectors, you know, like a lot of people are going to work on it, and it's going to be this thing where, like, hey, when you have something complicated that's performance dependent, things can fall through the cracks.
Yes.
Okay, at Rad, we have Sean, who wrote the whole goddamn thing himself,
Yes.
so it's in his head, and even then,
Yeah.
it's at the edge of what you can hold in your head.
Okay.
But like he's aware of all the trade-offs. One way or
Right,
the
yes,
other, right. And even with that, and
People say
also
drifting.
being
Yes, they
very
are talking
optimized,
about Java
to
and
the point of like
similar
we
languages.
do things that you wouldn't do if you were trying to make the most stable, most robust code. Like there's a lot of stuff we do to avoid things going through the garbage collector. There's huge chunks of the ActionScript language. I'm sorry, the ActionScript language, the ActionScript environment that we try to like broker through these kind of friend classes that don't go through the garbage collector. All this, it's a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
And that's with a very good optimized one, which one person has in his brain at any one time. So you can imagine something big is not going to be like no one knows how they work, right? Especially, I mean, even then, like it's complicated algorithms like garbage collection, like things that walk lots of links and all that. You ostensibly know how they work, right? You know, I will walk this thing and I color graph, and then the things that don't have the color are the islands, and then we delete them.
But you failed to think of cases X, Y, and Z that happen rarely, and
then you are taking a complicated thing and squishing it down into like we're coloring this algorithm and like it's a we made that
Windows.
and that's a very
You really think it's managed by CIL?
It's my opinion that even when you have one person, there are still lots of surprises in there, and we don't have good ways to think about things, or even great ways to visualize what's going on a lot of the time. Even to the point where when Sean put in dot support so we could like draw out what the garbage collector, it's still surprising. You're like, wow, there's like
it's like
10,000 things in an empty.
Well, wait, you are talking about the managed C++. That's something like C++.NET or something like that, or CLR, something like that. Yeah, CLR. I think it's MSVC CLR.
It is in Rad's best interest to say that garbage collection is awesome because it's part of Iggy. It's not. It is not. It is a terrible thing. And you very rarely get the win that you're supposed to. It's just one of those things that lets you write code sloppy and not being careful.
It's an excuse to write it sloppy,
And you will almost always have to end up fixing that later on, whether the whether the memory management part of it was the problem or not. You will have to fix that.
Yeah, CLR, but when Casey and I are talking about, and other guys from Handmade community are talking about C++, it's the unmanaged version. I don't know anyone actually from the community who would be working with the CLR version.
Something you think about till you're at the end of a project. And we've talked before about how I think most programmers try to be super effective at the beginning of a project at the expense of the end. And all programmers have time at the beginning of the project. They have none at the end. So they make that mistake over and over and over, and I'm guilty of it too. But it is something that people need to think about of, do you want systems that fail in very opaque ways late in the project? If you have a system, garbage collection is definitely one like that. And I would say we can go on to the scripting part separately, which I think is also true, is you're really putting yourself under pressure at the point where you would want the least pressure, because there's other shit that's going to go wrong too.
Well, so for garbage collection,
so we can. I mean, as a vendor of something that sells garbage collection, I think it's 100% bad. And then like if we had, it's in particular for the procedural imperative kinds of languages that we have. Now, for something, when you go to highly pure functional languages, there probably is some wins there because you can do a lot of calculus on the code and like shrink things down to, but that's not what we write in. And if the reality is these are the things that, this is the kinds of languages we program in, putting a garbage collector on them and then having to manage the garbage collector is just
It's insane.
just
Yeah,
wrong.
that's
It's just that it just period wrong. There's no debating that. There's no getting to the point where that's going to be a win because I can give you examples of very common usages that have failed. And
Well, so here's the thing that I would say about the garbage collector on a meta level, right? Because you're actually talking about practical problems with garbage collection, which I think are all actually totally true. But I think there's a meta problem with garbage collection, which is that for any given program, there is an optimal way to manage the memory for that program. I mean, that's just a given. It's like, at some level, we can say that, you know, if you had the magic oracle, that you could say, is there any way to get more efficient at managing the memory of this program? And it says, no, you've hit like some maximally efficient state, right? Whatever that thing is, you could just implement in the program, right? Meaning, we know that you can, you know, it's a computer, it can only run the things we code on it. So whatever that thing is, you could have implemented that thing, right? So garbage collection, at best, could only be that thing that you implement. And everything beyond that is just it getting worse, right? In other words, everything that it could be...
Yeah, GCC
is adding cruft to your program.
Okay.
It's the cycles you didn't need to spend, it's memory overhead you didn't need to spend, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the question that I usually ask about garbage collection is...
I don't know
for
about
this
TDM.
code
I
that I am
don't have.
writing, is
Not
a
aware
garbage
of
collector
TDM,
more
what it is or
likely
what
to
it does.
hit near that point than what I will have
But
time
Microsoft's
to write
compiler
myself
is
in
not
this code? Because
currently
that's
is
really
not the
trade-off that
best.
we're
It was
making
the
here. It's like,
best
can the garbage collector
before,
get me as close
but
to that
now it's
as
not.
I would have had
I
to spend,
think the
you know,
best
as whatever
now
time I could allocate on this project?
is
Because obviously it's all about time.
is
If a
going
garbage
to be
collector
Clang.
doesn't, you know,
It's
does
the-
a good enough
it's
job,
probably
but saves
best,
me 6 months of time
compiler
somehow,
for his
right? Then
optimizations.
obviously, you know, I'm more persuaded
So we're all waiting
by
for
that argument that
Clang
maybe I should
to
start
be
using
done.
this garbage collector or whatever it is. But the truth
Yeah,
of the matter
okay.
is,
Okay.
I spend almost no programming time on memory management. I mean, I guess maybe if you're not a career
Okay, I will try
programmer,
TDM
like maybe
actually.
you've
I
only
will
been programming
note it
for
down.
5 years, 10 years, I don't know, I've been programming a long
I'll give it
time,
a try.
maybe
The
if you
question is
don't
whether
really
it's
get memory management, then
it's
like, well,
producing
this saves a huge chunk of
Microsoft
time. I don't
compatible
spend any time managing memory. It's not like a thing that I do,
debug
right?
information, but I guess as
So I
long
don't
as
really think
it's,
about that. And
I don't know.
the efficiency that I
I
tend
will
to get
just
in memory
note it
management
down.
is usually massive.
TDM.
Like, I tend to be like, I allocate a bunch of things at the beginning of a program, and the number of allocations I have per
optimized
frame is sometimes 0.
branch.
Sometimes it's like 2 or 3, you know, or something like this, right? So it's the amount of memory overhead that I have in a typical project that I'm doing is very, very, very small, right? It's super tiny. So garbage collection doesn't even seem to approach, like, I can't even see the meta argument for it. It's like, you're taking something, I'm telling you that if I'm gonna go come program for whatever your thing is, I can get, for very little work, I can get essentially no overhead for memory management. And you're telling me that you're gonna add this whole system with an unpredictable set of code that I would have to like understand how it works.
And that we have very little visibility into. Even the guys that write it, honestly, are so, I feel like don't really
And sometimes you're not necessarily even gonna give me tools to visualize or any of that stuff. And you're telling me that I should just trust that it will do as good as essentially 0%
weird actually.
for my entire
But yeah,
project,
if it works for you, it's okay.
And I'm like,
I must use
I know
debugger
this isn't true. Like, I've
because
seen how these garbage
I'm not
collectors are implemented. I understand how they work.
I'm not smart enough to
way less
not
efficient
use
than
debugger.
What I do by default on a daily basis.
I have to
with
see
no
what it
effort,
does.
really. No, not even any
Have to
thought.
walk
And
through
sometimes I've done
each
some
piece
pretty
of
creative
code
memory
I do.
management things, right? For different
And,
styles of stuff. And maybe we could have a talk about whether the garbage collector ends up doing as good as those, and whether the time I spent on those was time. But that's not the common case, right? The common case is it's very simple what you actually need to do in a game engine in terms of the memory management. And I think, so in terms of that, it's like if you come to me and you say our platform required, like you have to use memory management, immediately I'm like, you don't obviously understand the way I write code at all. And I think there's a fair number of people who write code like I do in the game industry. I'm not uncommon.
Yeah, I feel like games are a little unique in that way, but I also don't. I think there's nothing special about other code that doesn't make it not that either, right? Again, like I just don't think like the common things are, oh hey, it's just easier to write code like that because especially for tools. Hey, I've got a solution for you. I've got 32 gigabytes in my machine. Don't free any memory.
But tools,
I mean,
not
it's
what
just
we're
like
talking
silly.
about, right?
I mean, that's one that comes up a lot.
Right,
Oh, it's so easy with strings. I'm like, I got an idea. Just malloc every time you need a string. That's it. Don't call free ever. And you know what? You're not going to use 32 gigabytes operating on the strings in this text file. I promise.
Well,
And
most
so,
of the things.
But again, the other thing I would say about like optimal memory management and not is, well, I'll say a couple things. One is if the garbage collector matches up with the optimal use,
right,
then you're great.
Right.
If it doesn't,
right,
you're fucked because you can't go reprogram the memory.
Right. There's no way you can get any closer. Right. Yeah.
In when you're just doing it yourself, which is not that much more complicated in my opinion, it never has been for me before.
I have not found it to be true yet.
Then the opposite holds, in which you can actually go, oh, we're getting fucked on too much memory use, or we're getting fucked on the sense that we're really thrashing the cache, and you can make it one person's job just to go change that.
Right. Yes.
You can do it
because you can see all the code, you know exactly what's going on. You don't have to understand someone else's system to fix it.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff. It
inserts. I guess the better way to say it is it inserts a black box into your process. Basically, it inserts something that you will have to decrypt and understand in order to achieve performance, which you never want.
I would
never ever want that. Right?
I would say one thing about that is I don't think it's even a performance question for me. Yes, that's there, and yes, that has a point to it.
Yeah.
I really don't think it wins. It only can possibly lose, and maybe it doesn't lose for you, and great. But don't try to tell me that a system that can lose is better than a system that I can fix. Because I can't. If your garbage collector fucks me, I can't do anything about it.
And I think that sort of hits at the core thing, again, which is that, so an argument about garbage collection, right, is something you can have, and we can have people on either side say, here's why garbage collection is stupid, and here's someone else says, here's why garbage collection is smart. But there's one thing that we can't have an argument about, and that is whether or not there's a lot of argument about whether garbage collection is right. We know for a fact, it is an objective truth, that there is a lot of argument among programmers about whether or not there should be a garbage collector, right? So if you are shipping a system that requires a garbage collector,
of course. I mean, you always
a large portion,
some portion of those,
whatever works for you. You know, there's no correct way. There's no general correct way. There are only ways that work for you. You know.
Why would you do that?
Right.
Because a garbage collector is something you can just ship as a side thing.
Yep.
You don't ever design a language that requires garbage collection. Design a language where you can say if you want garbage collection, because then the people who do think it's okay can turn it on, and the people who
write
don't
their own.
don't.
Yeah.
Right? There's absolutely no reason to ever ship a language that requires garbage collection for features in the language that do not need it.
Right.
Now, if you have a language feature that requires garbage collection and you want to say, if you choose to use this feature, it must go through the garbage collector.
Right.
I don't think anyone's going to complain about that.
And I think the standard things are, there are some ways to write algorithms in the presence of garbage collection where you can rely on the fact that it's running there and then possibly get some acceleration. Like there's copy on write semantics, things like that you can get some win out of. Again,
I would argue those have nothing to do with garbage collection.
Well, I would just say all those things end up being just more complexity on top of something that's already complex, and you will not be able to understand really what your code's doing. And then
copy on write has nothing to do with garbage collection.
I'm just saying
that is an OS, like that is if you have control of the memory system.
No, I mean I'm not saying that kind. I'm saying the kind where garbage collection does this a lot, where they're like taking pointers, silent pointers to things. And then, like, if you change them, like you can go crazy when the garbage collector is controlling all the memory, and you know where all the links are. You can go as nutso as you want on that stuff. Again, my argument is that's putting complexity in the wrong place. Yeah. It's putting complexity in a place where you're not going to be able to visualize, and you're going to end up being fucked by it because somebody's going to use it differently. And I think code's hard. Code's complicated, right? Anytime you actually graph code, whether it's in telemetry, whether it's in the kind of
You're
things
like,
where
wow.
even when we grab a frame of a game, right, with all of our capture tools that we did for Larrabee, we capture those, and you're like, oh my God. And just graphing out the
Right.
dependency tree of a single frame just of the graphic subsystem.
Right.
It was surprising. Like, I remember we did this for Braid. Braid is a 2D game.
Right.
We graphed it out, and then there was one place in there that Sean looked at, and he had shrunk one of the light buffer. I think it was a light buffer. Anyway, it was one of the render targets was half height, but not half width. And he was like, oh, shit. That's just broken. And then later on, he went, no, that was intentional. But like,
right, because you can't remember.
But you can't, and
right?
that's just
you have so many decisions that you
that's
made.
What it's so complicated,
Right.
and so anything that makes that blacker or more opaque, that system is in my opinion, and I'm not even talking about performance. I think making a program more predictable, easier to debug, all those things. Is always a win because you're going to run out of time.
So there's an interesting subtle point there, which is that I think most people think garbage collection made programming easier. They think it decomplexifies it. And the truth of the matter is, it only makes it less complex if you never care about what actually happened. And the problem is, you always do. The game industry is such that when we ship things, it always comes down to hitting 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second. Mm-hmm. Nothing ever becomes irrelevant. The strangest things will turn out to be stuff that you have to track down and fix. And I think that really does make it a little different from other types of programming, perhaps. Maybe people coming from like a web background, it's like, the server took 2 extra seconds to respond that time. It doesn't matter because your web's down half the time. Otherwise, whatever. It's a much more, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? A much more variant level of experience. Right. You're not expecting a web app to be 30 frames a second, always on, never miss, right? And so
you are expecting web servers not to have denial of service based on performance implications that you don't understand. So, like, I think it's wrong even in those cases.
But I'm just saying there's a lot, the
Okay, purpose is drifting.
Some web developers are thinking about those things.
Take care and see you maybe tomorrow.
Whatever, right?
I'm not sure when I will be able to streaming. I just want to get the parser ready and to actually test some stuff, and I will just close it down and open it tomorrow, and tomorrow will be the day, so I will finish on the 12th day of 11-day marathon, I guess. So see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
Think it would matter if they actually want to try and maintain a good frame rate. They actually have to care about a lot of these things, right? It's like just even a relatively simple 3D game ends up having a lot of these issues come to the front. And that kind of brings me to the second part about this topic with the native code, which is the performance sort of part of it. There's three parts that I was kind of thinking about. So the performance part. So one of the things that's interesting...
3 legs that are all weak and rickety. It's not like one weak leg.
Right.
Nope, this table's
going down. So one of the things about performance that I kind of feel like is a little pervasive is the concept...
No, Miblo, you are the man now, though.
Like this sort of... Americanized,
hopefully I get it running,
abundance thing, like Horn of Plenty.
Because I wanted to do it a bit abstract, but then I decided that it's just a stupid idea to do it that way. Before I have at least 2 or 3 parsers written for it.
The performance vomitorium, so that we go back and eat the more performance that was over there. And on one level, they're correct in the sense that I am actually sort of a relative newcomer on the scale of computing, in that, I was born in 76.
I will be up, it's just the purpose of drifting is leaving the chat, and I will stay around for a bit. I just need to get it working somehow, and then I will just commit it, and it's that thing, yeah.
Insane when it happened. I was like, holy shit, they're so fast. Memory management units, all this stuff. So obviously, yeah, I look at stuff today and I'm like, holy shit, we have so much raw computing power. That's true. On the other hand, every last thing I use that isn't a game, because sometimes games are performant. Every last thing I use is way slower, way laggier than anything I used in 1986. Games I ran in 1986, the OS I ran, the freaking Amiga operating system, was more respondent for a lot of operations than what I am given today on machines so many more times powerful, even for their relative resolution. So even for the amount of data that they're actually pushing around.
Yeah.
So the concept that we have more performance than we need is totally not true, because it's evident to me just even from the most trivial example. You pick up a phone, you swipe to the side, and it can't even keep up with your finger, despite having more power than things that ran at 60 frames a second at the same resolution.
And despite the fact that they do things like, well, we'll run the user interface at real-time priority to fix that. You're like, that's not what you need to do. You have other problems. That's what you need to fix.
There's nothing on the screen, dude. There's nothing on the screen.
Here, let me give you a clue. When they touch that, and you go through 10 levels of interpreted code to send the stupid thing to do. Yeah, it's nuts. And the reason why that's actually kind of a hard thing, a lesson that I think is hard, it is hard to learn after the fact, instead of being the type of engineers who fight all along the way, like all along the project of like, are you sure you should be doing that? Are you sure you should be doing a sprintf here? Right? That's just think about that for a second. Are you cool with that? Or is that cool? Even little things like that. If you don't fight every little stage like that, then you get this accretion of little losses over time that are impossible to find. They're not going to show up on a profile. They're just going to, it's all going to be like, oh, everything's slow. It's like, no. You just wrote a lot of slow shit that's like compounded into this pile of slowness that didn't need to be there. It has to be the thing where like you literally have to fight for it. And then Carmax talked about that when they wanted to hit 60. It was like they needed things to test it. Yeah, they were like, we need to have systems placed so that if we miss, we're like, we need to know then, not 6 months. We're not going to test this when we're running at 30 and try to get to 60. That'll never work. It has to be enforced along the way, or you'll never, ever, ever make it. And that's true all the way across the board. But it's way worse in like user interface stuff, which is running at like 2 or 3 frames a second.
It's
and
crazy.
It's still
It's crazy. I don't know what goes on with those things, and it's like it's so weird because. You see like them shipping like more and more advanced phone hardware to like try and get like, you know, Facebook to run. And I'm just like, it's so embarrassing. It's like that you could have run on a machine from 20 years ago at speed if you had the same kind of programming ethic that you did.
Thank you, Miblo. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
People who will shit intermediate languages and markup languages and parsers and shit, so that
and people
it's
complain,
this huge
and people are always
system,
like,
you know,
wait, no, it's way more complicated than it is now.
It's
and
not.
I'm like,
it's
let's
not
just
true.
Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Right.
It's a spreadsheet.
Right.
It works pretty much exactly the same as Excel. There are graphical, you can change the fonts and stuff like that. But like the core engine of what that thing was doing was there in 1982, right? Like that was there, and it was tiny and small, and it was like because they didn't have a choice. So there is something to be said for like giving your developers shitty hardware, just forcing them to do that stuff, because it is just something that you have to fight.
Okay, so why has no one done that? They need to give developers the dev kit and lie to them, tell them this is the thing, and then you ship a faster like.
Oh, I see. Yeah. They did bump it up right at the end. There is. Well, Sony, the PSP ran at a slower megahertz than when they shipped. They bumped it up 30%, and like, hey, everyone got faster. But there's also developers that buy. That stay on really low hardware, like sometimes ridiculously low.
Interesting.
Like, especially the European developers tend to stay on. I mean, I had somebody that was like they're on 2.0 gigahertz AMD chips, like very old machines, and I'm like, that's awesome. Like you got to do that. Yeah. That's probably not the machine you want to do your modeling on.
Right.
But
it's don't boot 3D Studio on that.
Yeah,
that's
don't
not
run
a good
Premiere
idea.
on that. Anything that.
Bad idea.
But that said, in terms of writing gameplay, that's terrific. But no, the interpreted thing really bothers me in general anyway, because there's some win for interpreting stuff for very dynamic things. When you want to ship something to an end user who lets them customize, there's all the good reasons for that. None of those reasons apply to people writing apps that are going to ship on your phone from a pack file that they chose to install. There is no win to doing that, because the languages are worse. There's no question. I can complain about C and C++ all day long. All day long. But there is no way there is no way to say that shipping something in JavaScript is
Right.
somehow more efficient
Right, yeah, no,
development
it's terrible.
cycle than that.
Yeah.
Especially because even for things like the
And the tools
awesome
are worse. The tools for JavaScript
I was
are
just
way
going to
worse.
say, like, the funny
Yeah.
thing is you're like, oh, interpreted language, you could have debuggers that are like, oh, in respect to the.
Yeah. But
Nope,
they don't.
even do
Yeah,
that.
they're
They're worse.
totally
So most
terrible,
of the
yeah.
time, the
Yeah.
embedded scripting language debugging is printf debugging. It's just
Right.
logging the shit out of everything, and that's even crazier. So because again, like these are complicated shit, and I promise you, no matter what you think your code is doing, you're wrong. Like it is, it just is. It's complicated, and you might be wrong on very big, drastic levels, or you may be a little wrong in the way that, like, right, the backlink causes things to all that shit. You're just going to be surprised, and the concept that you're cool, even though you're shipping something onto hardware that you've written and tested for. That you're cool letting the runtime JIT affect what the end user is going to see
Right.
is just insane.
Which, by the way, could change.
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna.
From when you shipped it.
It's gonna, and there's no win to be had there because you're not. I mean, if you were doing scripting, fine, put it in that. But like the thing for your core app is just nuts. And the idea a lot of time people talk about is like, well, it lets you run on future stuff.
Oh, you hit on the third thing that I was going to talk about there.
Let's talk about that because that's the one that is the weakest
That
argument.
is the worst argument ever. So, to this day, I am unaware of a single time when that mindset has ever borne out in practice. Not one, right? Every time we are told that this is a write once, run anywhere thing, the exact opposite is true. It's the exact opposite is true. It's like, I don't care how simple it is. I don't care if it's CSS, like the simplest problem domain in the world, laying out something in 2D.
Right.
Totally fucked up.
Yep.
You have to test it across hundreds of browsers, and they will all be different, right? All the way down to something like Java, which is supposed to be specced out and whatever. You run it. It's like, nope, totally didn't work. Like, look at how Android was supposed to happen. Why do you choose Java? Oh, because we're going to virtualize across all these different hardware things. Totally didn't work. There's like lists. You go to the humble Android bundle, and they have lists of which phones will and won't run games in the bundle. It's like, this mentality doesn't work. It never worked. The only thing that works with code, because like you said, code is incredibly complicated. The only thing that works with code is if you can test it on the things you ship it on.
And guess what? That's what they did on the Humble Bundle page. Is they went and tested all those devices.
Yes.
So if you did that, why didn't you write native?
I don't
why
know.
wasn't they able to write native code and just test that?
Which, I mean, to their credit, like I said, Android finally does have the NDK, so those games can just write native
still
on. But
there's still, Android is still a complete disaster.
It's still a complete disaster, yes.
I mean, that part, the nativeness of that is really hidden. You're still like a huge, huge sections of the UI go through managed code. I mean, it's just, there's no evidence for it ever working. There's only pure faith that this time is the time.
Well, and there's plenty of evidence against it working, right? There's tons of evidence that it does not work. No evidence that it does work. And yet people still do things like choose an intermediate language. Now, this goes exactly back to the garbage collection thing, right? Never enforce an intermediate language. Provide the native language first, get that solid, ship a very solid native platform. I'm talking to you, Ouya, directly. Ship a solid native platform in which people write directly to the hardware.
What's funny is
and then, if you would like to provide an abstraction layer, you can provide the abstraction layer, and developers who would like to make a decision to save themselves the trouble of having to port it if they really believe that this will work, can write to that layer. There is no cost to you to separate those two things out, because at the end of the day, I guarantee you, the pipe dream that you have, that everyone writes to this and it magically works on all the hardware you ship in the future, is exactly that, a complete pipe dream. It has never happened.
So here's one other thing that's awesome about that, is you write this thing where you're like, oh, it'll let you run on all devices. Guess what? I do need to run on multiple devices. They're not all yours. So it means I've got
good point.
I've got a wrapper around my Objective-C. I've got a wrapper
layer, you can provide the abstraction layer, and developers who would like to make a decision to save themselves the trouble of having to port it if they really believe that this will work, can write to that layer. There is no cost to you to separate those two things out, because at the end of the day, I guarantee you, the pipe dream that you have, that everyone writes to this and it magically works on all the hardware you ship in the future, is exactly that, a complete pipe dream. It has never happened.
So here's one other thing that's awesome about that, is you write this thing where you're like, oh, it'll let you run on all devices. Guess what? I do need to run on multiple devices. They're not all yours. So it means I've got
good point.
I've got a wrapper around my Objective-C.
There is no cost to you to separate those two things out, because at the end of the day, I guarantee you, the pipe dream that you have, that everyone writes to this and it magically works on all the hardware you ship in the future, is exactly that, a complete pipe dream. It has never happened.
So here's one other thing that's awesome about that, is you write this thing where you're like, oh, it'll let you run on all devices. Guess what? I do need to run on multiple devices. They're not all yours. So it means I've got
good point.
I've got a wrapper around my Objective-C. I've got a wrapper around my Java bindings. I've got a wrapper around my C# bullshit for Windows 8. It's like, you guys don't even get this. Before, I still had to write that in C, but at least I knew what the fuck was going on. Now my wrapper is just this hand-wavy hope I get the messages quickly. And I don't, And everybody has that problem. So it doesn't even make sense. And to make a big wrapper around some native interface, these native interfaces are there. They don't, somebody wrote those.
There is a CPU. It is executing, and shockingly, much to Sun's dismay, not Java bytecode. It is actually executing,
custom compiled,
for those of you who like things like garbage collection, a thing called assembly language. It's ARM, actually like executing machine code. And that is the thing that actually has to run at the end of the day. You need access to that. You have to be able to actually do that.
I guess so it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you end up with this thing where like you had to write all those native interfaces for your wrapper and your garbage collection stuff to sit on top of anyway. So it's more work to provide this other stuff. Now the question with the Ouya, and I don't know this, and is maybe the NDK is technically Google's and the rest of it's free. I don't know. Maybe they can't.
Well, this is why. So this is why I was asking. This is why I posted the question on Twitter. Is because I wanted someone to, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time right now looking at the Ouya SDK. I'm not going to spend. I don't have a development project planned for this thing. I was trying to figure out how hard it would be to ship something on the platform, which by the way gets to the secret fourth leg of this whole thing that we haven't talked about yet. But so the secret fourth leg. So the thing with the SDK is I just noticed it's not in there, So I don't know, like maybe they do have an NDK that they're going to ship, or like I was hoping they would just say like, oh yeah, sorry, like we didn't have a chance to put that out yet, or you can just, or actually no, you just go download it, go download Google's and it just works. Like I don't know, like they could say something, but nobody was answering, and nobody seems to know in the community. I think there aren't that many people developing Ouya games. I mean, it's the sad truth of it, But like, I couldn't get an answer to that question, and so I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is some very logical reason why they didn't provide it.
Or maybe it's there somewhere and they just didn't document it. Who knows?
It doesn't look like it's in the pack that they have available, but I don't know. So anyway, moving on to the mysterious fourth leg. The fourth leg of the prong. Well, actually, I guess should we move on to the fourth leg of the prong? I don't know. Maybe we don't want to move on to the fourth leg of the prong just yet.
No, give me
have we covered everything that we want to cover? What was the?
Well, I mean, I guess the point I would like to make to any platform developer is we already run on lots of devices. Anything you do to make it harder for me to do that and more layers for me to wrap the native stuff means more latency, more work. You're not saving me a damn thing. Even if I run on Java, my Java app is not going to run on the Ouya Java app because there's going to be different system APIs. It's like, just don't do that. Just give us, I need to run on a lot of things, which means it's going to be C++ and C. That's it. That's all you need to do. Guess what? There's like GCC and Clang and LLVM just waiting there. You can already get them. You can already do the whole thing. And guess what? Your own developers are developing those crappy wrappers using those. So just give us access to that. You'll be happier, you'll like the stuff, you'll get better games.
Right.
And I assume that's what you want.
Yeah.
You're not trying to, especially Ouya, who's like, they don't even have the argument where like, oh, we need that for security. It's like, no, they're trying to be open.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
right. Yeah.
just let us write to the machine. We'll get way better use of that 1.5 fucking gigahertz machine, which is insanely fucking fast.
Is that what it runs at?
Well, I mean, that's
It's a
what
Tegra
an
3,
Android
but-
now.
okay.
Well, the Tegra, I think, is more like 1.2.
Well, I'm assuming
Right?
the
I mean,
Tegra 3s
whatever
can
in
be
the
clocked differently. I'm assuming they're not all
it
clocked
may not
the
be
same.
clocked as
because
fast
it's a
as
plugin.
the Surface.
It's a plug-in device, so it can be clocked differently and cooled differently, right? So I don't know, but I don't know much about Tegra 3. I haven't shipped software for Tegra 3.
The Tegra 3 is not great.
So anyway, well, that's what I've heard. But so the secret fourth leg, right, is existing code. So one of the things that people I don't think appreciate about games is all of the high-profile game developers, like the people that you actually want to lead the charge because they have the most press visibility, right? You know, you're talking about your Activisions, your Electronic Arts, your whatever, you know, these sort of the big guys, and also the, you know, maybe the smaller big guys like the Valve or something, the people who aren't necessarily publicly traded companies but still control a huge segment of the industry and make all the games and whatever, Bungie, etc. These people have invested, they have a large number of highly paid, highly skilled engineers who are writing C and C++, maybe a little assembly code, all the time. They have built up huge libraries of code that they rely on to ship games in a timely fashion. If you come in and say, hey, guess what, guys? You get to do all that in Java now, right? Or, oh, we kind of have a thing that compiles C, but it compiles it to the CLR thing, so hey, I hope you don't mind that all your stuff will run differently now, and it's a little, you know, wacky and whatever. That is putting such a huge headwind, you know, in front of them that they have to compensate for, right? There is a huge body of work that exists for native code, for the ability to compile directly, you know, a C code base into a directly executable thing. You need to capitalize on that, right? It's like a backwards compatibility argument. The thing that you want to be backwards compatibility with is not the Java virtual machine, because basically you're talking about Minecraft. Like the one game you care about that's ever been written in Java, that's it. That's all we've got, right? It's like every other game that anyone's ever cared about, all the other multi-million-dollar franchises, all the other everything, they were all written in C. And most of these places are engines that have evolved over time. They don't get rewritten every time.
Yeah, and they don't even know how they work. I mean, those people leave the company.
It's possibly
It's
true.
hard enough. I just
That's
want to
possibly true. We don't know who wrote the vector code. It's just what we use.
Right.
And so don't fight that. Embrace that.
Yeah.
C is a lingua franca. Provide the ability to show up to your platform, compile with GCC or Clang or something, direct to your machine, spec your video stuff very cleanly with an OpenGL, whatever. Just make it be what people understand, and you'll get the games because it won't take any work to ship them.
The easiest thing I would say to anybody making a platform is ship with LLVM or Clang or GCC.
Yeah.
People are used to it. Don't force me to use Cygwin or anything else. It's got to run under Windows natively.
Right.
Give me a reasonable debugger. It doesn't have to be a good one, but I have to be able to connect to the machine. Don't make me like sign shit to debug. Don't make just. I should be able to, given an app, be able to start stepping.
Right.
Give me that. And then there was one more important thing. And like even the pressure. Oh, and then the other thing is, don't make me use some custom thing just to get started. Like right. Don't expect me to have to go in there and look at your framework to untangle it into something that I can use. Like there should be a simple loop that just draws a triangle in GL. It should be one self-contained thing. If you can compile that, I can get a game working. I can get any of our middleware working in days, and I will do it. Everyone will do it.
Right.
But if any one of those other things happen, then it's like, how many is it really going to ship? Well, then you start going in all those calculus, and then you're like, you've already lost, like because you're not going to ship as many. But fixing those small little things is all that you need to do.
Yeah.
And they're not hard. This is all very small.
And it should be minimal, right? It's like there's some things I need, right? I need to be able to get the input. I need to get the HID device inputs, right, from your whatever your input chain is. I need to be able to manage the push buffer to the graphics system and the memory there, right? Whatever. I need to be able to
start a looping sound.
Right. Start sounds like have a sound output stream.
Right.
I need to be able to get the clock, high precision timers. You know, I need these things. They should roughly be exactly what that is.
Yep.
There should be like a call that says get high precision timer, and it returns the high precision timer. That's it, right? There's no class. There's no like initialize the high precision timer subsystem that has like this huge set of like clock classes. No, there should just be one function that does that, right? And the closer you get to just one function that does exactly whatever the thing is that needs to be done, that is what you want.
Yeah.
Because
And
like
the
you
more
said,
likely you're gonna get
everyone has to
developers to use it.
abstract these, right? Everyone has their own set of ways that they handle the cross-platformness. So we don't want, need, or even like when we are presented with your framework, because all we're going to have now is a problem of having to do this with the two frameworks.
Worst case, you end up with something like Windows 8 that abstracts thread differently than literally
Yes.
every other platform, and so then
It
you're
screws
like,
everything. It makes
now
us have to
this one-
rewrite our framework.
Yeah.
It's like you want the minimum possible thing that exposes the capabilities of the hardware. That is what you actually want.
and it's funny because that is actually just way easier. The other thing
Yes.
is like
It's easier for everybody.
Yeah, and the frustrating
And
thing,
people who don't understand that, if you're people who are making products who don't have that level of understanding to be able to use those, there is, first of all, you can always provide libs to those people. They can have a level that sits on top of it. But even you don't even have to really worry about that, because that's like what RAD can do. Like companies can step in and fill that void for you until you do it, or you just don't ever have to do it. People, you know, it's a capitalist system. If there's things that are too hard for people, that's what the Unreal Engine's for. That's what Unity's for. They can go purchase solutions by people who knew the problem domain and who can do specifically what
but if
needs
you
to
make
happen,
it really
right?
hard to get Unreal running on your hardware, then you may not get it.
You may never get Unreal. There may never be an Unreal Ouya because they're just like, fuck it, I want to rewrite this thing in Java.
Right.
Which
So-
I'm guessing they probably
And then
don't.
the other funny thing is, Apple did non-native, and they didn't take off till they did native.
Wait, what are you talking about? Apple did native right off the bat.
No. Everyone forgets that. The first iPhone was not native programming. It was not native programming. Everyone forgets that. It was 6 months in where they were like, now you can write native apps.
Really?
Before it was going to be all HTML5 and bullshit like that. Like,
What?
Yes, the first version of the Apple had no native. That's important to remember.
I don't believe you.
Nobody remembers this.
You're right, including me.
Yeah, it was non-native to begin with. Then they shipped native apps.
I don't believe you.
Android, same thing. They came out with Java first, and all you had, and not only in terms of number
I'm
of
not
apps,
willing to go past this yet. So here's what I remember. I remember Steve Jobs getting up to announce the fact that now third parties could ship apps for the iPhone.
Yep.
And he showed like Spore, light, some kind of Spore thing from EA. EA got up and said, we were able to get this running in no time. Wasn't that the first time?
No, that was not the first.
Okay, so
they
there was
shipped
before
for 6
that.
months.
Who was allowed to ship before?
6 months
Who?
before that.
Who could
was
ship before that?
Apple, and you could ship. They were like, the whole
really?
point of this is we have a good JIT, we have everything. Just make web pages. And then they didn't have, like, remember, they didn't even have a third-party app store.
I see what you're saying. So you're talking about before apps existed at all. You're saying what they were telling you to do is just use the web browser.
Yeah, you could do that. And
absolutely.
The problem was is they didn't have it. They're like, there's no advantage to native. And like then
I
there
didn't
was like,
remember that part. But
then they
sure.
changed the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then Android, same thing. Everything was Java at first.
Right.
Hey, you got apps. They're all shitty and gross and nobody likes them.
Yep.
Then they do native. Windows.
Right.
A company that
Right.
that has understood the value of API lock-in for 30 years.
Suddenly it gets amnesia.
Suddenly goes, let me do that. And then like 2 years later, oops, okay, now you're getting native. My bad. I mean, they're very apologetic about all this.
Right.
And then you can't keep making these same mistakes. Start with native. Add the bullshit later.
Right.
You totally can add the bullshit later.
Right.
No one's going to care.
No.
The apps are going to totally be better.
Yeah.
Right. Facebook's come out and said it was a huge mistake.
HTML5, yes.
When we focused a lot of our development for 3
Yes, they
years on just HTML5.
They said that was a
and
disaster.
then they were like, that was a disaster. Now we embrace native and like it's only better.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is just silly. I mean, this goes into You want to segue this podcast into the insanity of the Chromium
Let's do
blank
so.
stuff?
So let's wrap it up for today for this one,
Okay.
and then we'll do that one.
So this is basically a direct plea to Ouya right
This
now.
is so to wrap up that very long and rambling discussion, which is, to be fair, what I wanted. I just wanted to get everything on the table because we can write, an article later that's like distilled down. Here's the quick, high-level brief. But yes, this is a direct plea not just to Ouya, but to everyone who ships a platform who maybe has a little bit of an open agenda. Like to anyone who's shipping a hardware platform that I care about succeeding in the future. Just please do this, because it is so easy to support a platform that comes out with well-spec'd hardware, C compilation direct to something you can control, and nothing else in the way. You can do magic there. Magic is a possible there.
Right.
And all this shit you put on top is just weighting you down. You're the hot air balloon that's got like anvils tied around. Like you're like, what did you put this Java-shaped anvil on here for? It's like, let your thing go, let it fly.
So should we talk about asm.js later then? I think we need a whole. I need an entire
end that one.
podcast to talk about.
I think we
asm.js.
got out what I was trying to say, what I wanted us to talk about. And so we'll save it from everything else. So Ouya, please just make a native thing. Maybe it's too late. Like maybe the ship has sailed. I don't know. Like maybe you can't recover.
Well,
because
it's sunk.
what's interesting?
The ship is sunk.
One of the interesting things about it, right, is like what are the first reviews of Ouya?
So guys, I don't know if anybody's still there. I finished the parsing, and I'm really tired. So I will go and take a good sleep for tomorrow, and I will finish the rest of the basic features tomorrow, and we'll try to release by tomorrow evening, maybe night. And of course I will continue on that more later. So see you, take care, and we will meet tomorrow for more. Bye.